Hello. Hi, internet, Twitch, friends. Yeah, there we are. I have to double check and make sure. Yep, all right. Hey. Oh, we've got some fun people in the chat. That's always exciting. Yeah. You know what else is exciting? A bunch of fine, fabulous females showing up for a fun time. Hello. You know, I like alliteration. I can't help myself.
Womp, womp, womp. I feel like we were supposed to break out into a dance at that.
That's the Patreon exclusive content. We'll do that later.
And I'm Amber. And I'm Grace. They aren't here. I don't know who they are, but
they're our backup dancers. It's great. They're fabulous. I love it. Amber's from Destin. She's a good girl, you know.
And Peggy. I've got Hamilton for you. There we go.
There you go.
Oh, wait, what? Hold on. Hey, I need to do a thing real quick, guys. Sorry.
Oh, yeah?
Banter, because apparently my Zoom is freaking out.
Oh, no.
Banter.
It does do that, doesn't it? Zoom every now and again is just like, aha.
How does everybody take their coffee? Speaking of banter on this fine morning, this fine Saturday morning.
I take it tea.
Oh.
Okay,
fair,
great.
Fair.
There's always at least one.
There's always at least one, and I'm the resident chai drinker. Okay, I grew up on tea, but these days I drink a cardamom black tea, and I boil it, and then I add milk and sugar. So I'm a very classic gal. It's delicious though.
That sounds really amazing.
Good. Oh, it's A+.
I promise I'm not this basic. It's just for health reasons, but I have my coffee with a splash of plant milk. So you know, I'm not bougie.
Splash of oat. That's it. Oat milk is my BFF right now.
I'm out here in the sugar lands. I enjoy almond milk and more than 2 scoops of, I guess we've been doing maple syrup these days. Ooh. Just like a splash. I was thinking of sugar, so you don't scoop maple syrup. My brain, hey,
you're doing great, baby.
My brain's falling apart. I was told to banter, and we're in trouble.
Great.
You're doing it.
You're great.
And you did it just enough.
But yeah, maple syrup. I started doing just like a spoonful of maple syrup, and then you know, living life. That's and that's how to be a woman in TTRPGs. Nailed it.
Thanks for coming.
The answer is caffeine.
Yeah,
caffeine with a spoonful of maple syrup. As Leona Maple, I approve this.
I was wondering. I was like, we have a maple.
Reasonable.
Speaking of, no, I'm joking.
Maple. Actually,
that was why I named myself Leona Maple. Let's be very clear. It's because I live in Canada.
Well, speaking of which, now that I've sorted our Zoom shenanigans, we can get into the business at hand.
All right.
First and foremost, thank y'all all so much for joining us for this panel. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. Thank you so much to our chat and to our future listeners over on YouTube or wherever we wind up putting this. So yeah, thank you. So glad that you are here. Speaking of our panelists, let me introduce you to the lovely ladies you see before you. Hi, my name is Emily. I'm not important. The important people are Lynn. Lynn Meyer, the fantastic, the amazing. I was gonna, it's not showing that. Okay, that's fine. She is a queer, autistic, chronically ill femme editor, writer, and sensitivity consultant. Yeah, from Chicago. Sorry, I just had a total brain fart, and I just...
You know what? I get it. It's okay.
I was like, where's Chicago even? No. Since 2023, she's been living her best Leslie Knope life in Indiana as a full-time editor for Paizo. Thank you so much, Lynn, for being here. We're super, super jazzed. I am not intimidated. We've just gone over this. It's fine.
Thank you for having me.
And next up, we have, I'll do it kind of in order here, Anne Richmond, the fabulous, the fantastic. Anne is an actual play producer, performer, professional GM, and a writer in the Queer Finder Volume 2, amongst other projects. Seriously, Anne is... I don't know that she sleeps at this point.
Me neither.
The little pause before was so telling. Me neither. No.
It was the gasp of looking in a dark mirror at the truth.
Jesus. The dark mirror got me, man.
Yeah.
And I love you so much. You have played in a few games with us. You're a fantastic role player and just a freaking joy to be around. And I'm so glad that you are here.
Happy to be here.
And then we have next up Leona Maple. Ta-da! She is a South Asian woman based in Metro Vancouver, Canada. Love it. She currently works freelance in the game industry as a diversity and inclusion consultant and desires to make games fun and inclusive for all. Leona is also a TTRPG player and performer and loves portraying powerful, magical women of color. She takes great pride in her South Asian heritage and culture and identifies as demi, pan, and queer, as well as ADH Spoonie. She adores cats and currently lives with 2. Yay! We're cat friends.
We are cat friends.
I did not add a pet addendum.
There's always room for a pet addendum.
Listen, you gotta have a pet addendum. It's
I
so
know.
important.
I've learned so much already on this panel.
They're not even my cats. They're just my fuzzy roommates, but I live with them, so they have to be mentioned, you know?
They are. It's important. It's important.
Necessary.
Seriously, thank y'all so much for being here. We have gotten a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions from our fantastic community. Chat here on Twitch, if you come up with anything in the interim and would like to add it, you can certainly drop them in the chat and hopefully I will see it, but I'm also me, so no promises. Let's see here then. All right, so first up, and all of these are going to be kind of for everybody, so we will just kind of move around, or if anybody's like really like, ooh, I'm going to tell a story, hop in, just raise your hand. We are going to have a good time here. So, first up from one of our good buddies, Monsieur Bouillard asks, was there ever a moment that made you almost abandon the hobby being TTRPGs specifically? Was there ever a moment where you knew you were welcome and helped keep you in it? So basically, yeah, was there anything that ever made you go, no?
I can answer the second one.
Okay.
So for folks who don't know, I started this whole TTRPG thing as a player, back almost, 17 years. But I didn't get into creating or doing anything that I ever thought would lead to a profession until Uncaged Anthology came out. And that was literally the first time I ever wrote anything related to a TTRPG, and it was like, what a first project, right? Like struck by lightning with the good fortune. And so this was all whirlwind. Nobody knew me. I was one of 20 authors on volume 1, and so except for my project, companions, who was I? I have nobody, right? So I go to Gen Con that year because the book was up for an Ennie. And of course we were all jazzed. And I was out of work at the time. I was scraping by, trying to crowdfund, you name it, to just afford to go. And I finally got a spot to stay at this house that this one Twitch channel, their whole crew had just rented out the house, but they had some cancellations. And so they were like, well, we kind of want to recoup some of this money. So they opened it up to outsiders. And I was one of the only outsiders to take advantage of that. So I knew nobody at the house. I marginally knew the person who I had connected with to make the arrangements, but that was it. And I was basically invisible until the night of the Ennies. So we had all of us Uncaged folks, we had brought our books along because we were nerds and we wanted to have all of our friends sign it. Like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God. but they're heavy, right? So the night of the Ennies, I was like, I'm going to leave this on the bed. I'm going to leave this at the house because I don't want to schlep that to an award ceremony. And so it's sitting there on the bed. I'm gone, and one of the folks at the house, I think it was the girlfriend of the organizer, looks down, I guess, on the bed and sees my copy of Uncaged and says out loud something to the effect of, "Oh, she has a copy of Uncaged. I'm so jealous. I wish I had a copy of that." And her partner said, "You don't know who that is, right? You don't know." And dropped the nugget that I was one of the authors for the book. And that was it. Like, the news just apparently went like wildfire through the house. And I have no idea because I'm off doing my thing. And so I come back, we didn't win, but it was a great night. Come back from my Uber, get out of the Uber, and I'm barely stepping onto the driveway, and this group of people comes to get me, and they make this semicircle around me. Like, I didn't even get into the house. I barely was past the curb, and they're like, "Did you win? Did you win? You're from my kid. Did it win?" And I was like, no. And then they proceeded to, for 45 minutes, we're standing there, and they're in this group around me, and they just proceeded to gush about what the project meant. So there's trans women and cisgender women and all different, identities represented in this group, probably 7 women standing with me. And just the things that I heard, one of them said, "This book gave me the confidence to start GMing." And another one said, "There's this story in the book that helped me figure out my own identity. Like, I not only felt seen, it helped me know who I am." And the stories just kept coming and coming. And I just felt like, see, I'm getting teared up thinking about it, because I just felt so honored, first of all, that they would share that with me, but also the power that these stories have and what it means to tell these stories and to write them well and to have thoughtful representation. And that has stuck with me ever since, because all those times that come up where I run into somebody who's like, "Oh, this doesn't matter," or "It's just forced diversity," or any of those other things that we often hear, I hold that moment and I say, that's why we do it, because we want more people in the industry. We want more people in the hobby. We want people to be seen at the table and have those stories be told. And so even when it's hard, there's a place for me. There's a place for all of us in the industry, even if we have to sometimes claw our way to make it happen.
Yeah, that last part hit. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 5 years ago, and in some ways, I can say things are so much better now. But at the same time,
there's still a lot.
It's also the same.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I will say, I feel very similarly that it's all the little success stories that I think that keep me here. Like the moments when you know that you're actually making a difference and you're making an impact, and like whether it's someone who's playing or someone who's watching, or when I get to work with a client because I do diversity and inclusion consulting and I'm able to explain things to them, and like you see them kind of go, oh, like that moment of success at the end of a project or after a consulting call. I really live for that. I don't think I could ever live without that, because it's really good. And that keeps me here. I don't think I've ever had a moment that's been like, that's it, I'm completely out. Mm-hmm. I think it's always a perpetual feeling of exhaustion, and so every day I'm like a little bit like, but what if? But it's never actually very sincere, Yeah. It's just one of those things, It's a tough. The difficulty of this industry is that it is both an industry and also a hobby space, and that means that it's a weird world to navigate as a woman, I feel like, and as a woman trying to run a business. So there's definitely a lot of days where I'm just like, what if I just didn't do this? But I love it too much. So, you do what you do.
I'm struggling to answer this question. Here's why. Because I don't think I've ever thought I will stop playing games. Right? I've never I've had some great days and I've had some dark days in the industry. But I've never said I feel emotions. I feel really #blessed that it's never crossed my mind to stop playing.
Yeah.
And I know that is not the case for everyone who's experienced something. So if you have experienced that, I definitely want to recognize that some people have been there, even if the people on this panel are like, we're too dumb to stop playing. We'll never stop. You can't make us.
How dare you speak the truth to me?
I will say that there are days where I've wondered if professionally this space is not for me. A really good example is that I had played with an established group. That group is predominantly, has been for until more recent years, predominantly mostly white males, and sitting in Twitch chat while I was trying to run a game, but seeing those comments like, well, they've got a girl GM, so I guess I'm out, or I guess this blue-haired lesbian is here now, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just the kinds of things that were said then, and then like an amount of hate that was then put forth on Reddit and like unstaunched, and also the people who ran the show like never thought to just reach out to me and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, no one can control what the internet says. You can have moderators, right? And also you can have a bad review. Like, people cannot like what you do. That's fair. But I during that whole thing, like, I really did collapse inward, and say like, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I can't write original stories. Like, maybe I can't do this. And there's a lot more to that story that I won't go into, but like, it just kept sort of repeating that mantra. And then, oh no.
You're good. Take a sip. That's a cute cup. I love it. Look at distraction.
Thank you. It's from Hobbiton. Okay, so it's from New Zealand. So I think though afterwards, it made the people who did invite me to be on writing projects and to play mean a lot more, because it felt like, it didn't feel like, this is so over the top, it didn't feel like I was being canceled, but it did feel like before that I was having a door slammed in my face that I just really was not expecting to ever be the door like that would be slammed, if that makes sense. And so since then, every person who's, been supportive and who's, played in streamed games with me, and even, people who have continued to help me, hone my performer craft and my writing craft in the games that I run off stream, or professionally, but that just aren't public games, right? Like, I just appreciate every single one of them for wanting to tell stories with me. So much more. And that feeling that, not everyone is your person, but when you find the table of people that is, or the group of people who want to read what you've written for the game or whatever it is, or who send a single comment on a YouTube video, or, things like that, like all those times that you think like, oh, they're never going to see this. So why tell them? Like, definitely tell them, because those are the lights that are like still on when the house feels like it's going to be derelict. Yeah.
Just before we move on, I am going to actually kind of bounce off of what Anne just said. I it's not a thing that has ever made me think about leaving, but it is a thing that I am constantly in fear of, which is gamer gators, which is that male demographic that sees a woman, and especially a woman of color, and is full of vitriol and rage. And I don't think we can do this. Like, I would be amiss if we spent this entire panel and did not mention this very real threat that exists to being a feminine person in this industry.
Yes.
Period. you know, and especially I'm acutely aware of it because I go on the internet and talk about diversity and inclusion on a regular basis. And if one person takes exception to that, I'm screwed, you know, like it is something that I'm constantly acutely aware of, is the danger I am inevitably kind of putting myself in because of my passion and because I want to make a living doing this thing.
Totally.
And as because we're on a panel talking about women in the space, like I just had to mention it.
Absolutely. That actually kind of brings another good question that we got. From one of our listeners, Shan. Love Shan. She is a great artist, and I appreciate. Shan asks, a question for everybody. What has been the biggest challenge that you didn't expect to face coming up in the TTRPG scene? And I think, like, you maybe kind of spoke to that a little bit of having kind of doors closed on you. Is there anything in particular other than that that was like a real moment that was like, oh, I didn't think that it was gonna be like this, but boy, howdy, look at, we sure are here at this.
I can jump on that one. For me, I definitely think like the boy howdy has just been the it's a tough industry, like financially, you know, trying to find the jobs, trying to survive, like it's like that's the hardest part. And as a woman of color, which is the intersection that I interact with the world with, I'm always just like, is it me? Is it my gender? Is it my race? Like what's like what's going on here? And then, you know, on top of that, I'm trying to convince people, hey, diversity and inclusion is a good thing. So it's you know, I'm always just like, I don't know which of these numerous factors was involved in me not getting hired for this. I would love to know, but there's kind of no way of knowing that either. So it is definitely a challenge. The one challenge that I thought I was going to get that I haven't actually gotten is a lot of folks that come talk to me are already on board. They're like, yeah, I love what you do. And I'm like, oh, you mean I don't have to convince you? That's amazing. That's a pleasant surprise.
Refreshing.
That's refreshing, you know? Like, that's really nice when I don't have to do that labor. But yeah, it is, I think, it's just hard to find the work, to get the work. And it is, you know, like I said, because it's a hobby industry space, it does a lot of weird stuff.
I think that's probably the best description of a TTRPG professional. It's weird.
It does a lot of weird stuff.
A lot of weird stuff in there.
I think a subverted expectation of like what it was going to be like, or like the challenges, is that you have this sense sometimes when you are a purely consumer and a role player and somebody who runs games for pleasure, that like everybody who is professional has their shit together.
Yes.
And I definitely don't want to be like the dark cloud on this. I'd be like, it's true. Every nightmare, it's real.
Strap in, folks. It's rough.
But you really do need to look out, ask as many questions as possible about, you know, owning, like never do work without a contract, like never, like all the things about dipping your toe into starting to work in this industry. And I've seen some questions in the chat about like advice and things like that, but really it's demand contracts. Even if you're like appearing on something for free, talk about like, what am I agreeing to? And, you know, really understand the length of time that you're committing to, what the expectations are of you. Do some research, make sure that this person hasn't gone out there and said some wild shit that's going to come up later. Like, and if you do see some of that, but the experience you've had with that person has been positive, ask them about it, because anyone who's grown, and I do believe strongly that like we should call out bad behavior, we should call out things that are wrong, but if we live in a world where people aren't allowed to grow and evolve from that, then like I don't really want to be a part of that either. So talk to them, ask them, and if you are able to determine like, yeah, I'm willing to stand behind this growth and I don't mind if that comes up for me later as like a question as to why I worked with a human being, then move forward with it. But like, yeah, it's all sorts of things like that. Dig a little deeper. Don't just go, oh, a shiny surprise and they want me to be a part of it, I'll eat that piece of candy. that metaphor may have gotten away from
No,
me. But
it did not, because it hit too hard, man.
But yeah, so those things I think are really the thing that I didn't expect. I expected everybody who was working professionally would have their shit together, which is never true.
And so false, especially in this space.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, and listen, when people do say stuff about like, hey, I heard you were thinking about doing that project, like do the research and look into it, because they might be saving your butt. Yeah.
True facts.
Lynn, did you have anything about
I'm just nodding a lot because that's so much truth. And I'll say also there, because this is part of my reality, there's a lot of ableism.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes along with not everybody will have their shit together. But I've had to learn the hard way that not everybody comes in with the best of intentions. Not everybody is authentic. This is my autistic self going like, oh, everybody is upfront and
nope,
they mean what they say. And, I know better,
I feel that.
but I know better, but you get into those spaces and you really want to believe the best of people. And I have stuck with circumstances much longer than I should have because of that. And this idea of what it means to be professional, which is first of all a racist and an ableist and a classist construct that needs to be really examined for what it is. There's a reason why we say know what you're agreeing to, have a contract, all these things, because there's a lot of exploitation that happens. There are people who don't behave nobly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are absolutely not in a situation that, prevents you from doing so, if you're in a really harmful situation, it's okay to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to leave. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not professional. In fact, there are times when if you say, no, this is not how I'm going to be treated, you're the one maintaining the professional standard. We really have to make sure that we are upholding some of that so people know what not to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had somebody, my final straw was a group that was brewing for a long time, but this guy at the table, we were decompressing after a session that, like I said, this was somebody who'd been really very much a bully and very much a misogynist, such a problem for so long. And we were decompressing the game, and I remember expressing an opinion from, my character's perspective, just kind of, okay. And he just launched into a tirade, a full-on screaming at me because he disagreed with the direction that I was. It was bad. And what got me wasn't just that he felt that he could do that, but that literally nobody stepped up and said that's unacceptable behavior.
Yeah, that
nobody said we don't talk to each other this way. The GM didn't do anything. This was a friend of the GM's that she brought in without consulting the group. I might add.
Sorry.
So red flags, right there. But nobody said anything, and so I just sort of listened to that, and I seethed. I listened to that, and then I
seethed.
I seethed quietly because I just wanted to be out of that circumstance. But in that moment, I made up my mind. I said, this is not a professional space for whatever we want to call professionalism. I hold myself to an expectation now that I'll be in a circumstance where I'm treated with safety and respect. And if I'm in a circumstance where that is not being shown to me, it's okay to go.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I recognize that that's not always easily done, but I hadn't expected how often that would be necessary to do.
Yeah. And did you?
I think, I think the key though also is that like, people out there who will moderate those types of things and who will protect the space of a project or a table like exist. They do exist. So like you'll hear on a lot of panels that have the focus that this one does, that like the danger is out there, like beware the danger. And the danger is real, but there are people out there who will moderate for you. And so it's okay to demand that. If you have somebody who is, if you're in a situation where you're feeling isolated and alone, and that no one is, and even if they don't agree with you, no one is empathizing with you, and people are letting you be trampled in an inappropriate manner like that, because you can disagree without yelling at a person. I think we can all agree that that exists. So if that, you know, like much like Lynn said earlier, if that's not happening, you should leave. Like, because you don't have to, a day of bad, you know, TTRPG is not the price you pay for working in the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not acceptable fully.
One thing that I will say, kind of from my perspective, is I've had to stop looking at, because this is a hobby-based industry, I've had to stop looking at things as I used to when I still appreciated it as just a hobby. Because like I'd be willing to give a little bit more of my time, a little bit more of my energy, a little bit more of my money to facilitate this hobby. But now, because like this is more of a professional space, I have to treat it like a job. If I'm not going to be getting the things that I would need from a professional job space, then I have to like really think about, is this worth my time? Is this worth my effort? So that would be a piece of advice that I would throw out there. Treat it like a job, you know, because if you're going to be doing that kind of work, it is kind of a job. With that, let's kick it. This was a chat question from E-Robs, our good buddy E-Robs. She asks, what advice do you have for other women who are looking to try and find careers in the TTRPG space? So we kind of talked a little bit about some of the challenges and struggles. Let's go on the opposite side, and what are some of the uplifting things and some things you would suggest?
I can pop in on that. Find a community. Really, you don't have to go it alone, and I really recommend that you don't. One of the things that was absolutely crucial for me and many of the other creators that you now see throughout the space is that with Uncaged, we had something that none of us had ever experienced before. And that was, we had our own Discord server where, you know, all the plotting and planning and all the business was done. But it was, what we realized was it was the first time that we were in a space that was almost exclusively women and folks of other marginalized gender, where we could talk about situations that we were facing, and you know, we weren't talked down, we weren't gaslit about it, nobody doubted that those were happening. We had a place where we could share and uplift, and it was the most incredibly positive experience that I had had. And there's really only one other project I've been part of as a freelancer that rivaled that. And that one was a majority queer space. So, you know, with Uncaged, it was both. It was, you know, gender and sexual orientation, you know, all this wonderful community. And I learned a lot because this was the first time I had stepped out from being a player, and I needed that. And along with that, if you want to grow your skills, and that's really the other thing, is you can have all the great ideas in the world, but you have to have the skill to back it up, and that only comes by doing. But there are resources out there. So for me, one of the things that helped me write my first adventure was working with Ashley Warren's what is now called ScribeMind community. And ScribeMind, they do a ton of different things. But for me, I took the Write Your First Adventure course. because really, I didn't know, how do you do this? I had a template to work with, but I didn't know how to get from there to here, right? And so I actually wrote my Uncaged Adventure as part of completing that course. So it introduced me to a lot of things that I wouldn't have otherwise known how to do. So that's not the only one out there. There are certainly other resources, but network and find your people, whoever they are. And they will help guide you along the way and save you from some hard lessons that maybe don't have to be experienced. But yeah, community.
I love that.
It's true. Yeah. Reach out to people. Don't hesitate to jump in my DMs. I'm always there. If someone's like, hey, I just want to ask a couple questions, I got you. What do you need? Community is huge. I can't stress it enough. Every time that I've built a community or been in a community, I've been like, yes, okay, this is what I needed. So yeah, definitely that. Also, don't hesitate to put yourself out there. Let people know what you're looking for. If someone's like, oh, I'm looking for this kind of thing, I'm like, I will keep you in mind. Because the power of a referral can be huge in this space. Yeah, absolutely huge. So put yourself out there and let people know, and people will pass your name on. And that's been, without that, I would not be here. So
worst
that
case
that was a big one for me.
Somebody says, no, I'm good. Like, all you can do is ask. Like, that's it.
Honestly, the power of asking is so underestimated, but you don't know until you ask. And I think it's very easy, especially as nerds, to be like, oh, no, I don't want to bother this person. No. Don't even do that. Put yourself out there. Ask. At most, be like, I'm so sorry to be a bother, but most of the times you're not even a bother. Like, honestly, most people want to be approached. They want to hear your stuff. So do it, let them know, and the worst they can say is no, but put yourself out there. I'm not even joking.
Yeah. I would say the community thing is huge. I can name a couple spaces that I'm in that have been really helpful to me. War Dolls is really great. They were primarily made for femme identifying folk who want to paint miniatures, but there are also a lot of people in there who are writing new TTRPGs and new systems and things like that. So finding them, and I saw them in the chat, Miles Away Games, and I have a community called the Good Hearts Hearth. And it is I'll throw the link for the Discord in the chat, but it is a group of people who all are built around TTRPGs from all walks of life and persuasions, but a lot of people are in there, coming up with ideas or looking for games, because you got to play to practice to know the rules you're writing around and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say don't be afraid to ask questions, because what you don't want is when you get ready for that big, quote unquote interview for a larger company, to not know the difference between development and design, and not know, not know the difference between being a writer on an adventure or being the art director, or, because sometimes we wear many hats when we're doing the indie stuff. But you want to be able to cut your teeth on projects where you can really, really learn, and being in these communities is a great chance to find other people who want to learn, or people who can share their knowledge with you, as Leona very rightly put out.
Awesome. I'm trying to grab some links real quick, trying to be whoop, my bad. And
obviously STF community is great, or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we're all right.
By the way, cool. I just want to say I apologize for having to step out for a moment. I have a 19-year-old cat who is sick, and he was making noises of distress, so I needed to go check on the old man. So I apologize. He is in here with me now, but I don't know if I'll be able to convince him to come on camera, because he's like, I don't perform.
He's like, no. They don't pay me enough to get on camera.
Right.
I don't know why your cat has a very sensual voice, but I'm sorry.
He's more... Okay, so I'm from Chicago, right? And I always lived on the on the south side, various places of the south side of Chicago. And early on in having him, my husband decided that the cat had a south side Chicagoan accent. And I don't know if that's accurate, but I can't unsee it now. So it's nice to have a variant interpretation of what the old man sounds like. So, you know.
I want to there was one question that I wanted to throw in that I've lost track of. So we're just going to put Rez's in there.
That is gone. It's lost to the void. We'll never know.
I don't know what to tell you. I suck at this. I'm bad.
No, you're doing great.
It's in the gap.
It's in there. I don't know what to tell you.
It's in the gap. Amazing.
Sorry, I have to throw a Starfinder reference in.
Who doesn't? It's the best.
I'm sorry. I'm so hyped for all the things you're going to get to hear about at Gen Con. You don't know how hard it is to keep my mouth shut.
RPAs are a hell of a drug.
Just go to Gen Con, hear all the things, see all the
Can
things.
do. Okay, so this one is from Rez. What did you already know about the TTRPG community that may have influenced your perception on its gender disparities and common issues? Oh, that one was pretty good. Like, I guess Gamergate-esque kind of concerns would have been my number one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like 1,000 years ago, but it really was pretty formative. I don't know how old everybody is on this call, but that was very formative in terms of my like transition from consumer to like creator. That was all happening at the same time at the very like genesis of that period. I think also just like going to game stores, which at the time, like we didn't have the burst of Critical Role social acceptance of like everyone deciding that that this hobby could be cool for all. And so when you walked into a store, you know, and you were the only femme person in there, and people gave like all the videos, they're true. It's true. All of it. Like they, at least for me, it was in New York City, like walking into Complete Strategist and having them be like, are you here to buy dice for your girlfriend or for your boyfriend? And I'm like, no, no. Or me picking up a miniature and being like, do you even know what that is? Like, yes, I do. And you know, and even if I didn't, like, can I help you is also sufficient.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like I heard doom and gloom and was like, oh, it might be scary in the dark lands over there. I went into the dark lands and I was like, oh shit, it's dark.
I am like, shocked.
Yeah. So it's a tough question to answer. I guess it didn't make me not want to go in there because I was like, I should be here. They're dragons and shit. You know, so I guess it's 6 of 1, half a dozen, right? Like the space is ominous because you hear these stories. They are true. And as we've said, they're less true, but the darkness is more insidious now because they're saying the quiet parts out loud these days. And so, yeah, is there improvement? Sure. But the darkness is still out there.
Oof, my goof.
I've only been in this space for about, I want to say 4 or 5 years. And I don't think there was something that I walked into this space with because I walked in as a newbie, as a hobbyist, and I started my business because I got fed up. Like that's really what it was. As I was like, what if I see one more racist ass supplement, you know? And that's how I started. But I will say, I think the way I want to answer this question is that I think it took me this long to get here because I feel like as a woman of color, this space was never one that felt accessible and inviting to me. You know, I was not expected to become someone who works in these types of industries. Like that was just not an expectation for me. So I think it just took me that much longer to even get to the table, let alone, you know, actually being at the table and experiencing everything. So I think that was kind of a bigger one for me. I don't think I actually had any preconceived notions when I came in. It was kind of after I came in. Like, I knew of Gamergate, but then after I came in, I was like, oh, okay, you know? So, yeah, that's all into that one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I sort of had the opposite in that this goes back to my naivete, but I was really fortunate that when I started playing, and my husband's actually in the chat, so he's going to hear me talk about this. When I started playing, it was because I was invited to by the man who is now my husband, who is somebody who has been playing since the days of the old D&D Red Box, you know, literally playing since the 80s, playing, game mastering, all of that. And, you know, when I say that, people probably get this idea of this, you know, stereotypical grognard, right? You know, gatekeeper. And it was just the opposite. You know, he said, you know, we just started dating, and he said, you know, I have this hobby and I think you'd really enjoy it. And I would love if you would come and check it out. I said, okay. I was terrified. I was so shy, but I was hooked. Like a month later, I'm like, when's the next game? I need more games. But when North creates these spaces in all of his campaigns, there's gender diversity, there's sexual orientation diversity, there's racial diversity. It's everything that we're trying still now to create in the larger industry. And that was my experience coming up, you know, where I felt like, oh, okay, there's representation here. My first campaign, it was a Changeling Dreaming campaign, and I was this bisexual, you know, from House Elunid, you know, the librarian for the barony, and I had this awesome girlfriend. You know, it was wonderful. And so in a way, even though I knew the other stuff was out there, it was this abstract notion because it wasn't my group. Now, that said, there were individual players at my table that I was like, you know, not thrilled about, but the game mastering kept it safe and inclusive, and it was great. And that's what got me hooked. And so when I left that space to go out into online, that was a wake-up call. Because suddenly, it's not that I ever doubted it, but it was my first time experiencing it. And that was such a shock, because there's this part of it that says, oh, that had to be from years ago. That couldn't still be the problem. And there it was, still the problem. So yeah, I walked in a little bit unprepared, because I had a good experience at home.
I think that happens more often than you think.
Yeah. Actually, I my very first campaign that I ever GM'd was the Curse of Strahd 5e. And it was in person, it was a group of my friends and like my best friend, and she had a wonderful time. It was great. She and I were the only females in the group. And then she started playing with another group, and she said multiple times, she was like, you spoiled me. You spoiled me. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
That does happen. That does happen when you play with a group of people that you trust and love, and that bond is there, and the, you know, ability to tackle any kind of like negotiations that need to happen when people make mistakes. You like, I have for sure one group like that I was like, never let go, because it's such a treat. Like, that's the real test, is if you can find groups to play or work with where like when somebody F's up, that like everybody can talk about it and find solutions. Like, that's the real gold, because like perfection is liminal.
Yeah,
it's unattainable. But yeah, it's really hard when you move into a group and you're like, oh wow, it's awful here, this is not for me, you know, immediately. But most people aren't ready to admit it for a little bit.
I will say the one thing that I've noticed as I've gotten older, specifically and just in community in general, is that sometimes it requires a lot of effort to build the community and help people get to the person you know they can be. And that kind of brings us to the next question. Logar the Ogar asks, what are some of the good intentioned mistakes people make when they're trying to be inclusive, or at least attempting / pretending to be? Have y'all ever had any instances where you're like, oh, I see what you're trying to do here, but let me give you a little extra push in the right direction?
Yeah, I have one big one, and it's not using safety tools, but saying, don't worry, I keep a strong grip on the table. Because what they are saying when they do that, even if they don't intend, what they're saying outwardly is, I will take care of you and I maintain like a level of comfort at my table. But you are asking for a tool that you want to be able to be clear with what doesn't work for you. And as we all know, we're human, and sometimes you realize something isn't working for you while it's happening. And so when I come into a group where it's, and I'm not talking about the people who are like, oh, I don't use those. It's the people who say, I don't use those, but don't worry, we communicate a lot at our table. That's like a red flag to me, because I'm like, okay, but you're not listening to what I need in order to play with you. I'm not saying, hey, do you have this cool book I'd like to make a character from? I'm saying, this is what I need in order to make sure that I can communicate clearly with you about what I do and do not want.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a lot of the like, just trust me, I'm good for it, that like coming from a friend or someone you have any type of relationship with can feel like it's enough. But I can assure you that can go very poorly. So I would say like that vibe, when somebody asks you for something and you're like, oh, I've never needed that before, but I should just let them know it's going to be okay. Like, I would really check yourself if that's your impulse. And also, if you have, I guess, being defensive if somebody decides that your table isn't for them. It's not always personal. It might just be like a different person at that table that they can't be around, or that is making the game unfun. And it's not like a personal judgment on you if somebody leaves, but it is your responsibility to, as if you're the DM or the GM, to figure out why. Those are sort of, it's a really good question. It's hard to, I know everyone is really nervous about like, can I make a safe space? But the biggest thing is to listen. And when somebody says they need something, to try to find a way to give it to them. And if somebody else, not like give them everything they want as far as like just carte blanche in the game, but like if somebody says, hey, in order to play with you, I need to be able to communicate in this way. Yeah. I think that's the line of like, you have to listen to those asks. And if there's somebody at your table who's like, that seems dumb, then you should be questioning that person as to why they can't also be generous in spirit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyone else have thoughts and feelings?
Thoughts and feelings, y'all. I will say real quick, just a little shout out. Adam, our forever GM with STF, he is so good about making space. And I'll be honest, like, I'm in a group with all guys, and coming in, like, most of them were pre-established friends, had been friends for years, and I felt very nervous about coming into that group, coming into a game that I'd never played. Like, TTRPGs were new to me until I started playing with them. And I was very nervous about being the odd girl out. But Adam in particular has always been really, really thoughtful and pretty observant about like if I'm uncomfortable about something or if I felt weird, and not just me, everybody at the table. And that's one thing that I really do appreciate, because he encourages my like mask companions to feel their feelings and share them with the group so that we can accommodate and continue to make what we make together. And I think that's a big, big takeaway, is find somebody, find a community, find a group that speaks to you and encourages you to speak for yourself. So thanks, Adam. You're awesome. I had one last thing, because we are kind of coming up on time. We still have a few other questions, but we're just not going to be able to get to them. Thank you, though, so much, everybody, for sharing those. If you have any other questions that didn't make it into this, I would very much encourage you to drop those in the Discord in the Women in TTRPG channel.
Yeah, we can have a look at that.
Absolutely.
Bye.
The last one that we will talk about is from one of our buddies, Queen Beatrix. She asks, what kind of things need to change or improve to make the industry as a whole a more welcoming space for women and also queer people? Can't word today. BIPOC. There you go. I just had y'all, the brain farts are just going nonstop.
I'll say one sentence and then I'll shut up about it. But you can't just say, if you're at the top of a company, you can't just say we need to be more inclusive, but not hire people up through your ranks. Like only your contractors are diverse, right? Like you need to elevate voices throughout your company at every level, whether it's in marketing and how you speak to your community, or within the writers, within the development, the design, the art direction. Like everyone needs to have an awareness and have the tools that they need to do that. And obviously you should pay sensitivity people for that, but they are not infallible or cannot always cover every single piece of a project. So as they say in real estate, the house has got to have good bones. So if your bones are all white men, then you should reconsider. And thank you and good night.
Bam! Mic drop.
I cannot agree enough with that, because I will say this too, and I recognize that I have a certain privileged position, right? I have my full-time job in this industry, and I know how rare that is. And I know that there's a lot that went into that is as much luck as anything else, is as much having the right tools at the right time. There are so many fantastic people out there who could just as easily be doing what I'm doing. What I would like to see, along with and as part of the hire more diverse teams, is mentorship. If you are in a position where you have this knowledge, where you have access, you don't close the door behind you, you extend a ladder.
I love that.
And please, yes.
And so mentorship, there if you don't know what you don't know. So if there's somebody who really wants to get into writing, but maybe there's a knowledge gap in there, if you have it in your wheelhouse to offer some mentorship, do it. I'm primarily an editor these days. Guess what? If I see somebody with potential, maybe I can offer them some insight, right? Kind of. And goes back to what we were talking about before, referrals. I can't tell you how many times, and this was the same when I was still in my old higher ed job, people say, well, folks just aren't applying for the jobs.
No.
Really?
You kidding me? No.
What?
No.
No. Where are you advertising? How are you advertising? Who are you extending the invitations to? Diversify even your network so you can ask a broader pool of people. So yeah, I take it very seriously about trying to bring people along.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be here without people doing that for me.
Yep. Same here. Very much the same here. And like, if you're looking around all your friends or what, you should probably, double check yourself just a little bit. No, there's a lot of that, hire your diversity and inclusion consultants, hire your sensitivity readers, and make sure that you have as much diversity and inclusion at every step of the way as possible. If you don't think that there are people in that industry, that is false. If you think that they don't have enough experience or qualified for the job, that may be true because they are marginalized, and you should do your best to bring them to the level you need them at. Yes. That's not a good enough reason to not hire. Let's be very clear. What else can you do to make things more welcoming for women and other marginalized identities? Listen to them. Give them safe spaces and incubators. Believe them. God, you think that's so simple, right? But it doesn't happen all the time. Having safe spaces where they can talk, where they can be honest, believing them, giving them the resources and the support and the tools that they need. I can tell you how many times I've just been like, oh my God, please, like, you know,
just give me bare minimum, man. Just come on.
Like it's really not that hard. You know, there are folks like us, we're here to help. Like we are like happy to answer questions and do all of this stuff. Like that's all we want, you know? And we recognize that it's always a work in progress, but like be transparent about that. You know, just let us know where things are at. And, you know, a lot of times we're willing to work with that. You know, if you're like, hey, I know that I'm really good at, you know, I always say, I know that I'm really good at talking about race and racism, and that's an intersection that I, as a sensitivity consultant, am amazing on. I may not be the expert in accessibility and disability, though, so I'm going to find you someone who is, you know?
Right.
And that's just me as a consultant myself, you know? So, yeah, there is a lot of room that still needs to be had to make safety, to ensure that women are being hired. Like if you still look at the statistics on especially in the C-suite levels, it's not seen. It's just not, it's not. So, you know, like there are very easy ways. A lot of folks believe that the idea of a diversity quota is a bad thing, and I'm not going to go into unpacking that because we don't have the time. However, I can if you DM me, and I'm happy to explain to you that that is false. I understand why, but it is false, and the need to hire diversely is deeply essential and important, as much as is making safe spaces, going to bat for marginalized identities. If you are a white male ally listening to this, go to bat, protect these people, advocate for these people. You are someone that gets listened to more than we do. Far more than we do. Use your voice for good.
Yep. And did you have anything, or you already?
I really already went. The only other thing I would say is that if the only people of color that you are involving in a project are as sensitivity readers, that is the problem.
We are great. We're not the end all be all.
And not every person's experience, as you very rightly pointed out, Leona. I just wanted to like put it out there again, is not everybody has the same sensitivity experience. And so it's not a box you can just check off on your list and say, well, we did sensitivity. Like you have to continue to ask questions, and nobody is expecting perfection. So you have to be able to receive critique.
And early enough in the process of your project for that critique to make a difference.
Yes. Please.
That's a good one.
So, you know, don't come at me with something that is just waiting for the, you know, insert marginalized identity here to sign off on and give you permission. You know,
I have definitely been the last bastion before people have hit publish, and that's okay. I understand that we are unlimited budgets in this space. If you can bring us in sooner, much better for you. I can do it. Like I can do it, but please don't make me. And I can be the only sensitivity reader on your project. Please don't make me. Like I understand that we're still progressing. We're still figuring it all out. I'll be there to support you because you're putting in the work. But for the love of God, please know that the goal is much higher than that. And if you stop at just hiring me, you know.
An example, right, is if we have these, let's use this one. Like if you're writing a book about a desert culture, you don't bring someone at the end when you've already developed all the factions within the city and how they may be operating under like ingrained systemized racism that like you, to the best of your abilities, feel that you've avoided but definitely haven't. You need your sensitivity reader to know how do all these people interact, what are the references that you're drawing from, because they'll be like, hey, did you know that's actually really like this is how we get Aladdin. This is how we get Aladdin. Do you want to be Aladdin in year 2024?
Aladdin.
And if you're writing about desert people and you're not a person of that culture, really sit there and ask yourself,
why am I telling
writing? Why are you telling this story? And I won't unpack that right now because again we don't have the time. But I'm happy to sit with you to help you unpack that and help you realize why or why not you should be writing that story, because that's a whole thing. So just ask yourself that. We'll start there.
Ladies, thank y'all so much. This has been, honestly, I didn't really realize how much I needed to have this conversation. So
It'd be that way.
Thank you a lot. Thank y'all, chat, so much for hanging out with us. This has been really, really beautiful. I love that we had this opportunity to have this panel, to have these amazing women come on and talk to us about this industry, and just helping us all see with a little bit clearer eyes and work to a more beautiful goal in the end. That's what we're all here for. Everybody make space, be inclusive, and gosh darn it, just be happy, okay? Just be happy with the fun games we're playing.
Amen.
I have posted in, I'm going to do it one more time just because I love oversaturating people with information. I am dropping in the Twitch chat the contact information for our lovely panelists. So make sure to check them out, follow them, keep an eye out on all of their fantastic projects. If you all have any other questions for myself or any of them, obviously reach out on Discord or to their personal contacts. Thank you so much again. Next panel that we do have coming up is going to be the GM Happy Hour. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be exciting. Thank y'all so much. This has been an absolute pleasure, and we're gonna do this again. BT dubs. I like don't know the date, but just it's happening. Any final words? Anything else from y'all?
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Lynn. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm choking to death. Apparently. Yeah. Thank you.
Don't die.
And thank you
So
chat.
much.
Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful rest of STF Con, and we'll see you.